Hello everybody, it's DeanSpillaBean back on your screen doing a State of Phoenix video. So what even is a State of Phoenix thing? It is basically me just talking about the current state of Phoenix in the grand scheme of Dota 2, how he's supposed to be played, best to play him, when to pick him, when to not pick him as well. That's actually kind of important. But just overall where he kind of fits in the Dota 2 picking draft hero mythos. This is also just kind of a way for me to talk about Phoenix in a way that people would like to know. Like, oh, how do you play Phoenix? What's the best way to play them? There's a lot of ways to play Phoenix, that's for sure, but there's also a lot of wrong ways. So I'm kind of hoping with the State of Phoenix series, or if you're interested in playing Phoenix, you can have a good idea of how he's played, how he kind of fits in, best to use his skills, when to not pick him. Not picking him is also very important. First off, what even is Phoenix? Well, Phoenix is played as a support. Abilities are very strong, but are very slow. Main characteristic Phoenix has is the power spike that he can get at like level 3 or 5, specifically with Fire Spirits, where you can dive on someone, you can do a good chunk of damage to them. Just as a quick initiation, you can do about like, that's a good chunk of damage, about 400 or 500-ish. Throw in some more Fire Spirits, some more auto attacks, and you can do a lot of damage at level 5. And same can go for a level 3. So, combo again, level 3 this time. You can still get about like a 500 burst damage if you use all your spells and get some auto attacks in. It is a very effective initiation near the start of the game. But of course, a huge problem with Phoenix is that his skills are on a very long cooldown. So, even if you could do all that damage very quickly, if you get rid of all of that damage too quickly and you don't use it that much, you're going to be down for half a minute, which is actually really major. So, while Phoenix does have a lot of damage potential very quickly and very early, the counterplay is to survive his onslaught, and then he just kind of goes hiding in the trees and he can't do much for a while. Then, of course, once you reach level 6, Supernova's unlocked. That just kind of adds to the amount of DPS that you can do showing up to a fight. Now, of course, this is a target dummy. A real person would actually just kind of walk away. So, anybody can just kind of walk away from the Supernova and not get affected too much. And that is one problem Phoenix has, his lack of crowd control. As much damage as he can deal, he just does not have the damage. So that's where you get someone with some slows. So similar combo. As you can see, as soon as someone has a slow, it's going to be hard for him to get away. Phoenix can follow up with a dive and spirit combo and actually get a kill. However, this is completely ignoring the fact that some heroes just have mobility abilities. Just as an example, Primal has this thing where he just runs away, and that does not care about slows. There's a lot of heroes that have something like that. Anti-Mage has that, where he has Blink Dagger. Blink, sorry. Queen of Pain, similar thing, they have a Blink. Void Spirit's a difficulty as well. Astral Step with Dissimulate, it makes them very difficult to catch. Puck as well, just Illusionary Orb, and being able to just blink out of reality. Oh gosh. Ember Spirit has a lot of other ways to dodge stuff. And one other thing to note is Centaur could also be a kind of a soft counter, just because of his Stampede that just gives all allies hasted movement. So, obviously, huge problem Phoenix has when trying to use Supernova is that people can just run away from it really easily. Or they can try to destroy it, one or the other. But most of the time, it's just safer to run away from the Supernova. This is where having your teammate comes in. Literally all you as a teammate of a Phoenix has to do is use some kind of ability that stops people from running away. Then that actually allows Phoenix to do a lot more damage, a lot more consistently. Basically, Phoenix on his own is not really good at setting up kills or killing people, but a good way to think about it is that he's really good at putting more fuel on the fire. The fire that is, oh no, I am like super duper slow. Oh cool, well now you're taking like 100 DPS for several seconds, and you're gonna have to live with that now. The putting more fuel on the fire is something that you should keep in mind as you're playing. The more you play, just try to focus on making the enemy's problems worse. So you might also notice I don't skill Sunray that much. That is because I actually did the calculations. It does very little damage in the early levels, and it does actual damage around like level 3 or 4. How I even came up with these numbers is just having a target dummy, using Sunray on them, seeing how much damage was dealt. So total damage was 462, so the dummy health has 5,682. Do some quick calculations. I actually end up with 12.3. I think that was because of Dying Light, where while Sunray's doing stuff, Dying Light does damage. I'll talk about his facets in a bit. But the overall damage ended up being about 11%. But realistically, that might be a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on magic resistance amount. I think also he has 25% magic resist. I think when I did the test, I took away magic resistance by summoning an Elder Titan. It's mostly because whenever I do any tests, like actual legitimate tests, I try to have Elder Titan here for natural order, because that just takes away all of their resistances. And then that's kind of how I ended up with the numbers that you see in there. See, that actually did notable damage. I could do calculations, but basically that's the actual value that you're getting out of each level of Sunray. To show what I mean, I'm just going to use it on this Primal, a level 1 Sunray. Should do a lot of max health damage, right? No, it did like barely over 100. It's not really good at level 1. So that's why usually I put another point into Icarus Dive, because a second point into Dive, you get an additional 80 damage. Which, of course, isn't as much as Sunray, being like about 120, but at least with Icarus Dive, you're also slowing everyone. You're also being mobile. You're also getting in and trying to do some damage. So it just feels better getting a second point into Dive and just not getting a point into Sunray until at least level 8. Then you can start leveling it up. The further the game goes on, ideally, you should have Aghanim Shard by the time you reach level 10, 12, or at least until you get your Sunray maxed out. Because damage potential is actually really... Oh, I don't have mana. Take 2. Damage potential is really, really high if you can get Sunray, Supernova, and all of your other skills off. Yeah. And you might also notice, again, someone could just kind of easily walk away from that and just not be affected. So that again comes to where having someone applying slows, or something similar to that, stuns as well, can help Phoenix do that insane amount of damage easier. And as you're transitioning from the laning phase to later on in the game, you really have to play around the Sunray Shard Supernova combo, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to do damage later on in the game. Fire Spirits, as much damage as it does, is way too slow. Like, it just takes forever to actually do its damage, and you have to keep constantly applying and waiting 4 seconds in order to use it. So, as an actual fighting tool, it's very minimal. You'll have to go in and combo with Dive, try to get some autos in order to rack up enough damage to make it meaningful. Or you just use all of your abilities on someone really quickly, and all of a sudden they're going to take a lot more damage. I can't actually turn it. So that is the combo that later on in the game you should try to work with. And items you get should also work towards that. A common item, a lot of people get a Spirit Vassal. Reason being, let me give it a charge real quick. Reason being is that it does a percentage of the enemy's max health as damage. So, percentage max health, percentage max health. Oh wow, look at their health, it goes away. This is a very ideal item to get. It is a bit expensive, being about close to 3,000, though getting an urn usually is good enough. Of course, if you're able to get a Spear Vassal, it's significantly better. But that's just what you're going to have to do. So, normally, You might also start the game with a Ring of Protection that actually gives you some armor, builds into Urn of Shadows, and going back into laning just a little bit more. A first item that most Phoenixes will probably get is Tranquils. This is mostly because all of his abilities cost health. Wouldn't it be nice to get all of your health back? Oh yeah, it would be. And why did it break? Oh, I dealt damage to something. Okay. So, Tranquils is online, you gain a bunch of health regen, you can get all of your health back. It just makes sense for Phoenix to have that. Then for the extra damage, go in for Urn. Try to get assists as much as possible, because whenever an enemy dies within range, you get an Urn charge. Eventually work towards getting it to a Spirit Vassal. Another big item to go for is Shiva's Guard, arguably literally the best item that any Phoenixes can go at all throughout an entire game. Reason why Shiva's is that when you activate it, sends out a freezing wave that makes enemies get slowed, take more damage, and more damage from spells as well. So the overall damage that you can do with Shiva's, Sunray, Supernova, debuff them with Spirit Vassal, and some of your other stuff, oh, you're going to do so much damage. However, that's not talking about how expensive Shiva's Guard is, because it needs like a $2,000 blueprint, which is a high cost. Usually, getting Veils is kind of enough, because you can benefit from its extra damage. It's also on a lower cooldown, where it's a 16 second as opposed to Shiva's Guard's 27. However, most of the time if you're able to, you should get a Shiva's, of course if you're able to. Now for the elephant in the room, Supernova survivability, because if someone's really smart and determined, and they get a Moon Shard on a Primal Spirit, they could almost destroy the Supernova. Now most of the time, there's probably going to be like a second person somewhere in the battle. So, frankly, most of the time, if you're not careful, the Supernova will just get destroyed. Of course, I granted this Primal a Shard, but let's see if that actually makes a difference. One hit away. So this is where a actual notable strength to Phoenix is, where Supernova does get hit, but if you're a melee unit, you have to get like right next to him, and all of a sudden you don't have a way to get away too easily, which makes Phoenix really good against melee heroes for that reason. And not a lot of melees are good at attacking. They usually do like really big hits, but it doesn't matter how much damage any one hero has, it's going to be just that one damage. So even though he's got a bazillion rapiers, doesn't matter because it's only one hit no matter what. Which, okay, makes sense. But then of course, let me get someone like Sniper, who's known for having a lot of range. I'm not really showing off this, isn't I? Okay, Sniper probably has 4 Wraithbands, maybe. He'll probably also get a Morbid Mask, maybe. I don't know, we're going off of hypotheticals here. So one guy in particular can't do that. Of course I said. I think also one problem, Supernova in the wild, in like an actual game, is difficult to pull off because it's hard to tell when people are in a specific location. So even if... This is a demo, so everything's in a very controlled environment. It's very easy to control where everyone is and where everyone's going. Out there in the wild, it's going to be very hard to position for a Supernova, because not only do you have to like get everyone hit by it, but you also have to make sure that no one's too close, as they will probably just shoot the Supernova anyway. Also, why would you be using it against one person? You might be using it against multiple people. That's like one of the main reasons for Supernova. But you don't want it to be too close, otherwise everyone can just gang up on the Nova and destroy it. This is, of course, where having movement slows, or attack slows in general, is going to come in huge handiness. Well, of course, if it was going to work. Okay, let's just make it fair. Everything's max level, so definitely fair here. Okay, so everyone got slowed. Now, doesn't matter. Good grief, what am I actually trying to get to? That getting hit by heroes is bad, so you need to be further away, but people can run away, so you don't want it to be too far away, but you also don't want to be too close, as they'll probably just destroy the supernova anyway. So where do you place the supernova? Ideally anywhere that's difficult, or difficult for an enemy to reach. Or, another huge answer, having someone like a Magnus that doesn't have the wrong facet. Hey, geez, reverse polarity is not good. Okay, so try this again. Oh wow, look at that, they're taking a ton of damage. They can't actually attack the supernova. By the time they can, they're probably dead. So, that's kind of where having someone on your team like Magnus, who has reverse polarity, that just stuns everything in a huge area for a very long time. This is with the extra stun duration, of course, but that amount of time means that they're not attacking. And usually with supernova, if they start attacking, like right at the very start, they can probably destroy the supernova with ease. However, if it's like 3 seconds later, or even 2 seconds later, their chances of destroying it are very slim. So, going off of that, what best you can do is buy time. If you're a teammate of Phoenix, buy him some time. Use an ability to stop enemies from getting too close. Try to reposition them either closer or away from the Nova to give them a safe distance. Using stuff that stops people from attacking in general and just takes time from people. Speaking of taking time, why don't we just chrono everything? No one can move, no one can do anything. Oh wow, that's pretty effective. So, by its very nature, Supernova is a combo ability. It is fine on its own, however it gets countered really easily if the team is coordinated and is able to actually do anything. So, what I'm trying to get at is trying to use some other team fight spell to start up, and then have Phoenix put more fuel on the fire, doing more damage, Sunray, Supernova, all the other things that he has access to make that fire burn hot. This also means by Phoenix's very nature, he's not good at being an initiator. While he can kind of start appearing and getting into position, he doesn't stop people from attacking him. That actually worked, kind of. I gotta keep reminding myself that this isn't a controlled environment, so things just may or may not work as it does in an actual game. Whatever. Although, one optional combo is that you can have Phoenix as an initiator and just kind of start a fight, and then to protect the Nova, using your big abilities to give Phoenix more time to do stuff. And you can ideally just stun everyone for an extremely long period of time. So, heroes that combo well, of course there's Faceless Void and Magnus, but other examples is Tidehunter, where he has Ravage, stuns everything in a massive area, actually the same radius as Supernova. Pango is actually another option. His Rolling Thunder allows him to constantly stun people. Earthshaker can also be an option just because he has really good stuns that combo in with people trying to get too close to each other. Puck can be kind of silly, because Dream Coil stop people from running away. Oh no, Phoenix is here, and they're actually doing a lot of damage, and they can't run away because Dream Coil is active. That's an option. Although, huge one that you would probably see a lot is Mars, because his Arena of Blood literally just creates an area for people to be unable to leave. And also, whenever Marzult is actually active, enemies outside of it can't shoot in, and vice versa if enemies are inside. No one inside can shoot out, so the Phoenix Supernova is completely protected when Arena of Blood is active. So, Mars is arguably the best combo hero with Phoenix, simply because with how his Marzult works. And this can actually go a few ways. You can set up a Supernova, have a Marzult happen, of course have the Supernova outside of the area. Actually, wait. So here is the area. Phoenix should be outside of the arena. Like, yeah, he kind of is, okay. I thought it wasn't correct. But you get the idea. As a teammate of Phoenix, try to set up stuff for that. Heroes that aren't good with Phoenix in this aspect are ones that don't do that. Timbersaw is kind of an example, not a good laning partner. He doesn't have any stuns. He has slows with Chakram, so that's one option. But he doesn't really give Phoenix a lot of time, and he doesn't a slow attack speed either. Not a good laning partner in that aspect. Trying to think of other offlaners that... Doom. Doom doesn't really give people a lot of time. He can doom people and just completely, basically kill them. But his other skills doesn't help with making the supernova survive very easily. That is, of course, if Doom gets access to a Centaur stun with his Devour ability, because that actually provides a good AoE stun. Trying to think of other people that just don't work well. Night Stalker's weird, mostly because with just how he functions in general. I have too many buddies. Because all of his skills actually rely on it being nighttime. Like, he gets like a bonus attack damage, unobstructed vision and all that. Supernova literally just turns things to day and just turns off his ability to do anything. And then he gets back to normal, which is a really interesting anti-synergy that makes Phoenix a good counter to Night Stalker, because it literally just takes away the one thing that gives him power. But also it makes him a bad laning partner for the same reason. So that's the thing to note. So that's about people to work with and who to not work with, or who you're good against or whatnot. What is Phoenix's main counters? Of course, everyone who has played Phoenix would know this one. I'm going to just show this off at like level 6. So, big counter to Phoenix is Snapfire simply because of Little Shredder. Supernova gets out. Oh wow, it's doing so much damage. Oh wow. Oh my god. Oh wow, Supernova is doing so much. Oh my, it's almost over. Oh, it's gone. For the same reason, Ursa is also a counter, because he has his overpower ability that makes it so the next several attacks that he does can just annihilate the Supernova. Yeah. Marcy is also another example. Her ultimate ability just allows her to attack really quickly. You get the idea. It's basically anyone who can just attack really quickly by default. Okay, good job. You get the idea. When it comes to Supernova, which actually makes like Phoenix actually do anything in general, it just makes it really difficult for Phoenix to do anything. So much so, like one person, one of these many. That's very close. Basically, any hero with a large amount of attack speed can just loop-de-doo, loop-de-doo. I'm not even gonna think about it. Just got the Supernova, no problem. There's a lot of examples, but I would like to mention Troll Warlord really quick, because it's a little iffy on him. So, Troll has the insane ability of Fever, where the more he attacks something, the more he attacks it. So, yeah, he just gains a lot of free attack speed, basically. Look at him go. You get the idea of that. So, when it comes to Supernova, you can take that out pretty quickly, too. Wow, okay. You making me eat my words, thank you. However, very specifically, if you can ever get Troll to activate his Battle Trance, and you're like, I'm going to attack that person, well, Supernova is actually on very low on the priorities. So if you ever hear Troll doing his ultimate ability, you could legitimately Supernova, and he'd be in a really bad situation. Since with how he ults, he tries to uncontrollably attack anything within the vicinity. Supernova is counted as a ward, and is thus on like really low on the priority list of Battle Trance. So that is like one of the only few cases that Phoenix has any hope of counterplay. Every other one, it just isn't there. All that to say is Phoenix is really good, as I've been mentioning, a fire amplifier, I guess? Or a problem amplifier. I think that's a better way to put it. Oh, there's a problem going on? I'm going to throw a sun ray on there, dealing a ton of extra damage. Ha, that's going to kill them, pretty sure. I'm also going to slow their attack speed. I'm going to maneuver myself around really quickly to get into position for a supernova, utilizing that to do even further damage. Wait for his stun to go off, do some more slows, position myself with dive again. That's where he's really, really good. Where he isn't is if the amount of pressure that he's trying to put on gets stopped at all. Like, if it gets stopped, Supernova gets destroyed, or enemies activate Black Keen Bar, as an example, because that actually just prevents most of his damage from going out. That is to say, normally he would try to start a fight with all of this and try to stop. Oh. Wait, hold on a second. He was affected by BKB, but he got hit by... There was an evasion thing there, hold on. And here's an instant replay. Bounty's going in, BKB popped. Evade! What? Okay, this isn't part of the video. So when I saw this, I went on like a whole like 20 or 30 minute situation trying to figure out why that even happened. So I think I figured it out. Let's see. Oh yeah, there's the evasion. So I think what's actually happening here. I haven't talked about Blinding Sun in the video yet. This is literally off script. I'm just going over this. I just found another thing. It makes logical sense. Blinding Sun applies a debuff that causes a mischance. Supernova also counts that. You can see that it's doing that. However, there's no evasion that time. Hold on. Any evasion? No. Good grief, come on. It's probably because it was on a really low chance. Okay, let's try this again. Evade? Now, that kind of sounds weird for me to complain about, but, let's see, so applying all of that, it's got multiple mischance on. You can see that the evasion comes out, and that's coming from the Blinding Sun effect. No, makes sense, that's reasonable. So why is it... when doing this, like it never happens, even though it's like on a... There should have been at least one evasion there, but there isn't. So, here's what I think is happening. Supernova, the entire effect pierces debuff immunity and cannot be dispelled. So, if Supernova is the only source of damage and it's applying the Blinding Sun effect, it applies its own variation of the Blinding Sun effect that doesn't get negated by evasion. Because, you might also notice with like all of his skills, they have their own variation of the icon. Sunray? It's got its Sunray variant. Icarus Dive even. It has its own Icarus Dive variant. There it is. Supernova also has its own variant. You can see that as well. Does this get purged? That does. That does get purged. So if we're going off of that, that shouldn't be dispelled, but that's the effect of Blinding Sun, so which is dispellable. So I just found an interesting interaction where if Supernova is actually applying its the Blinding Sun thing, then oh yeah, there it is. There's the evasion right there. Huh, but then also if you use any of your other skills and that applies any of the blinding stacks, those will never happen. I say that, but then it did it right there. Or is that because that's the Supernova's specific blind chance, and that was just a really low chance to evade? Good grief. Okay, I'm gonna get back to the video. Hopefully I get back to a part that actually makes sense. I just went on a huge tangent on this, I'm sorry. Now, I know a lot of people would like to mention that the stun that happens from the Phoenix Supernova once it goes off, that goes through BKB, which is very important. I will agree with that. However, Usually, what would probably happen is a fight starts, and the BKB user's like, huh, a fight is starting. I'd like to not get affected by spells. Activating that. Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna not go in, I guess. So what am I gonna do? Supernova now, but then BKB's over. So what's the point of a BKB piercing stun when the BKB is already over by that point? It has a 6-second duration later on in the game. It's almost like the actual stun that comes out of it doesn't matter a whole lot. Specifically when it comes to piercing BKB. That is an important factor, but there's kind of no point for someone to be going into a fight with BKB unless they're going to do something. Okay, so that is where it's actually useful if say you have an ally that is going to get got on. That's where you can activate Supernova, and you have to have this guy either focus on. Did that evade? I need to actually check that, because that's the second time that evaded while he was unaffected by the evasion. Huh? Anyways, one example could be, as a counter initiation, if someone's going in and they got a BKB active, and they're going to their buddy, and they're like, oh, I don't want to go fight that Supernova, but I'm going to go away. Oh, what do you know? BKB just ran out right before that would even matter. So they would probably die anyway, because they got hit by a massive stun that they could have avoided by just kind of walking away. What I'm saying is that the actual BKB piercing stun property of Supernova, while it is good, most of the time won't matter all that much unless the people that you're fighting are really dumb and they're getting attacked. However, an actual good case of BKB piercing stun is Magnus's reverse polarity, because it just pierces it. Bounty Hunter can't move at all, even though he's affected. Wow, that's like an instant thing. BKB doesn't even matter. The actual stun part from the Supernova only works if people are nearby, and they're only nearby if they're trying to kill the Supernova. The reason why they're killing the Supernova is because they think that they can. So he's like, I'm going to go destroy that. There's nothing you can do to stop me. Oh yeah? Bam. What do you think of that? Okay, I can actually kind of see that because they're just stunned for even longer. But this is a very controlled environment, so it's hard to tell like how things will actually happen. I feel like in a real game, if that situation happened, there'd be someone else also here doing some extra damage to that one dude. This is why it's hard to understand like how to get Supernova in the best possible way, because there's way too many variables to account for. I can just talk endlessly about it, but I don't think I'll ever get to a concrete conclusion because there is no one way to do the Supernova. It is really a case-by-case basis. And I've been doing this for like a really long time, and even I do some fluke ones because I think, oh, maybe in this situation I can because people are smart, right? But then in some random situation it didn't matter because they didn't feel like helping. That has happened before. Or also at the same time, maybe all of their skills are on cooldown. They just kind of used everything simultaneously, which takes several seconds to work. So maybe I mistimed things and I didn't know that other people had their skills off cooldown. And then that also resulted in my death because I didn't know that their stun was not available at the time. That has happened. It almost feels like it's just better to wait for your allies to try to go in and cause problems first, and then follow up with Supernova stunning them. What are you going to do about it? Well... Oh, that also is where a BKB stun would come in, because even if they try to retaliate, it just doesn't work. Okay, so there are uses to where it does work out, but you kind of saw there, once Magnus got in, caused some problems, Phoenix come in and following up. Like, that is a lot of potential. Could you imagine that as like an easy 5-man RP into Sunray death? It's a very good combo skill. Okay, I think I've talked enough about Supernova. I gotta talk about other things. Facets. Let's talk about facets. So, Phoenix has Dying Light and Hotspot. Dying Light deals a percentage of Phoenix's current missing health as damage and an AoE around him. Now, as you might notice, that number is very small. That is because it is exactly 4.5% of that missing health. What that actually means is that for every 100 health that you're missing, you deal 4.5 damage. So every 1,000, you deal 45. Just as a comparison, I'll bring out a Radiance. Radiance does 60 damage in an AoE around you. So you could try to have Radiance with this Dying Light effect, go for a lot of health as an example, and I guess try your best to get rid of it. And you'll do an okay amount of damage in an area, but even with this, it just doesn't feel like a lot. There was a time when it was like 6%, which actually felt like it did something, but it still suffered from the same problem that I'll be talking about, and that's that the later the game goes, the less relevant Dying Light actually becomes. It's only really good as a laning tool, because that is a lot of free damage at the very start of the game, where I'm going to try to be fighting some of these creeps. Of course, I'm at level 30, so it's kind of disproportionate. But I'm doing like a casual bit of extra damage to people. Early in the game, that's probably going to be like 20 to 30 damage if you're like really, really low on health. Of course, the problem is that you're very low on health, so if you're not careful and you get hit by like a big spell that does a ton of damage, then you'll probably get killed. I personally think a good way to go about it is... Shut up, Meepo. Is try to That's not Meepo, that's Morty. Heck. One way I found to go about this, having a bracer Helm of Iron Will can give you some good durability. Let's say you're trying to get into a fight. And, let's see. Nyx, can you do some damage to me, please? So, I've lost about 30% of my health, and I'm doing just a tiny bit of damage over time. It's not going to be as effective as I want it to be, but you can already see that extra... or the damage from Dive and Spirits does a lot to him already. That is very helpful. So let's say Phoenix is like really, really low here. Even at like missing 1,000 health, look, you know, it does like very little damage. It's not a lot, but adding it to your other skills actually does make it very deadly anyway. And there are times when maybe you're fighting and you don't have any skills, but you do have... Sorry. However, you do have your Dying Light facet, maybe some other items or whatever, but that just helps you do a little bit of extra damage. Of course, I would have won this fight normally even without this, but the point I'm trying to get at is that Dying Light is really good as an early game option. Going for a bit of health, try to lose as much health as you can, not going for as much regen so that you can keep that damage low. But as the game goes on, damage doesn't really matter too much because it's too small to be any amount of significance. So you'll have to go into other options. But it is really good early. The amount of extra damage that you can do, even as a support, is really, really strong. And you can easily win your lane with this. Interesting thing is when Hotspot is involved, because what that allows you to do is make Sunray scale better. So, you seem to be over at the edge of the point. Of course, that's only level 6, which I find funny, because even though Nyx is at level 6 and this is a maxed out Sunray, it only barely killed him. Anyways, so Sunray does more damage the longer along the ray that an enemy is. That is to say, damage closer, or Sunray closer to Phoenix, doesn't do as much damage as the tip of the Sunray. This effect also is affected by cast range. So if I get something, I don't know, an Aether Lens into an E-Blade, you can potentially just do significantly more damage. Look at that health bar go away. Now, clearly, if you've been following, you would know that comboing Supernova Sunray with that and extra effect radius is ideally the best possible version of Phoenix that's possible while fighting. That was like miles away from supernova, and it still did a ton. So, as the game goes on, the more and more you'll be relying on Sunray to do any of the damage, and that's where Hotspot comes in, allows you to do that damage even more. Also, that wall of text is going beyond the thing, beyond the HUD, that's funny. That is to say, if you want the late game combo potential to be very, very high, you go for Hotspot. If you want early game to be a lot easier, that's where Dying Light comes in. However, depending on which you pick, you'll kind of be losing out on whichever part of the game that you're not doing enough in. That's not to say you'll practically lose your lane if you only go for Hotspot. The previous patch of Phoenix is basically what you'll be playing until you get Sunray points. And thing to note while you're leveling, you still kind of try to level normally, try to max out Fire Spirits, but since you actually have a point in Sunray, and you actually have the hotspot effect, you can potentially do about 200 damage instead of the 120 that a normal Sunray would do. And of course, get that maxed out and leveled up and whatnot. All of a sudden, it does significantly more damage. I'll need to run the numbers to get a good exact of how much extra damage that actually deals. But needless to say, it's a very good effect. Now, you don't have to go for the extra cast range that much, while it does greatly benefit you. In fact, if I go kind of extreme here, I got like the two main spellcasting items. You can see almost dies, but almost isn't enough. So then you swoop in and kill. Things to note with Aether Lens, it does not affect the range of Icarus Dive, which doesn't sound like that crazy of a thing, but I'm always really bugged that the extra cast range doesn't work with it. Here's a little radius. I'm going to keep moving Aether Lens back and forth. It's not there. As a comparison, if I have something like Fire Spirits and have that triggered. Is that not getting updated? What? Oh!
You know,
Oh, that's funny.
Live streaming this game right now.
Okay, so I figured it out. The cast range only affects the launch Fire Spirit part of the ability. So you can see that hits, but normal Fire Spirits doesn't have that updated. Oh wow, I found a bug! Wonderful. It's not really a bug, it's just a quality of life thing. Okay, but we'll do it with Sunray instead. Okay, so you see there's the radius of it. Boom, bumps up the radius, that's pretty handy. When it comes to Icarus Dive. Oh yeah, I got the extra range talent. Boom, bam, boom, bam. Doesn't affect dive. Now what'd be really funny is if it doesn't work with... Okay, it does. Okay, it does work with Scepter. That is funny. That Supernova gets more benefit from Aether Lens than Icarus Dive. Odd. All of that to say, go for Hotspot most of the time. For every game, you'll probably be wanting that. However, Dying Light is good if you want the early game to be really easy. And I've actually had good success with Dying Light if you're going as a core. So saying if you're going into the mid, as an off lane, you can just basically dominate your lane with that extra damage output. Even though it got nerfed recently, the free extra damage is always really nice. Then of course, later the game goes, go into... Wait, I'm level 6, but I have... Huh? Bug? That won't happen in an actual game, doesn't matter. Anyways, Hotspot for late game potential, making sure that you do an even stronger amount of damage. It actually, also the healing of it also is very effective. I forgot to actually show that off. Where... Look at that healing. Look at it go. That's actually a pretty notable amount of healing. Whereas before, it kind of wasn't that much. Here's a quick comparison. This is without Hotspot. With Hotspot, that Nyx would have gotten like an extra 300 to 400 health. That is to say, overall, Hotspot is just the better facet, but it's arguably better if you're going for support. Dying Light is better if you're going for core. I think that is a good way to think about it. Okay, I've talked a lot about Phoenix. I think I've gotten a lot of thoughts out. What about items? I might like to talk about a bunch of items. Well, that's kind of where my guide comes in, and this is where I talk. You know how much I like talking? So much that I would do his stuff. For every item in the entire game, actually, let's see, can I show this? Here we go. Every item in the entire game, I have a little note on these for every single item in the game. So if you want my in-depth thoughts on literally every item in the game, that's where my guide comes in handy. I would try to read off all of these, but you kind of can't. As an example, with Disperser, upgrading doesn't do much, stats are nice, but only does slow. Wait, it can dispel on self when cast, even when triggered on someone else. I wish there was more options for Phoenix. Right-click. These are my thoughts trying to use this item. Poof, I'm gone. Of course, that doesn't really tell you much. Until you go to something like Shadow Amulet. Oddly enough, when you turn invisible, you can do this during Sunray. Need to find a use for this. That actually is true. You can use that. You can be invisible. But the moment that you try to move, it stops the invisibility. That's something to note. However, if you're moving with that... Oh, okay, so that is just movement. Let's see. Does it work with Glimmer? I'm pretty sure it does. So you can be invisible while you're moving like that, and you can turn around and cast stuff. So that could actually make it really difficult for people to do much to Phoenix while Sunray is active. Wait for the day Phoenix gets multi-shot on dive, AC 130 above. That is literally just a really dumb joke. There's a lot of those kind of jokes, but I really want there to be a Phoenix right-click option. That note is simply me being like, oh, wouldn't it be really funny if you can get like a ton of attack speed, you have a Phoenix diving around, and he just attacks fast enough that he just sends out fireballs as he's flying. That's the kind of thoughts that I have a lot of. Although, you might have noticed that my flying is actually really fast. That's actually a new change that happened within the recent patch that wasn't documented, where if you go for the extra dive range, the speed at which you dive is really fast. I'm not sure if that actually scaled with the ability normally, but that's a new change definitely, because every other version it would actually take like half as long. So that's kind of weird. It binds the impossible for like 2 seconds. Frankly, with a lot of these items, there's not a lot of use for Phoenix, so I just kind of make it sound underwhelming. I mean, no one's going to pick up Maelstrom at all, but I got a little flavor text that says it crackles with power. Or says it cracks with power, but I need to change that. Radavato says something useful, long distance route for quick buggers. Something I should do, I really should. I should mention how it works with dive, because you can kind of artificially increase the cast range of stuff by diving somewhere and using an ability like that. Let's see. So I'm like halfway across the map. Whoosh. Now I'm way the hell over here. So that's kind of potential. Oh, other thing I didn't show with Shiva's Guard. Huge benefit with Shiva's Guard, activating it. You can actually like get a bit of vision where you're using it at it. So if you're going to go into a fight, you can use Shiva's Guard to get yourself a lot of vision of an area. Very useful when enemy or the fights are just taking place in trees. You can get vision of that. The vision does stay on the ground for a little bit, so you can use this as an initiation. Do I have that as a note? Activate before diving to slow everything and gain a large area vision. Yes, I did put that on here. I also note putting this on adds pseudo hits to supernova. That's because it kind of does. And by pseudo hits, I mean that they're not actually hits, but it's preventing them from doing something. So for Shiva's Guard, as an example, it adds 1 or 2 pseudo hits. That's mostly because of its passive that reduces all attack speed by 45 of enemies. So that just makes them do slightly less attacks. which could probably mean the difference between taking that one hit or not. Or it also depends on if the enemy already attacks slow in general, or is getting attacked by a bunch of abilities that make him attack slower. I completely forgot about Blinding Light. Or Blinding Sun. Okay, I'll talk about it in a moment. So, what is Blinding Light? Because I actually didn't even go over that yet, which I find funny. Blinding Light applies a debuff to enemies that causes them to miss their attacks. And every one of your abilities applies 1% every half second that the ability lasts. So if you hit everything, you can see the effect go up really high. Now, you might also notice that the debuff icon changes depending on the last one that actually hit it, which is kind of funny. I don't know why they haven't fixed that yet, but whatever. This used to, previous patch, only been for Sunray. It was significantly stronger, being able to apply like a 60% slow or blind after the full duration. However, now it's just reduced. You can probably get 30 to 40, but at the very least, all of your abilities can apply it, so you don't have to rely on Sunray to do that. You can actually use your other abilities. Blinding Sun is actually kind of good for that. Anyways, back to pseudo hits. Evasion, because of that, it adds an extra hit because, oh, they missed an attack. They're going to have to do it again. That is literally just adding an extra hit.
Ooh, Morty, I've been to all kinds of different realities. I've seen a lot of stuff. Yeah? And? I'm just saying. Seen a lot of stuff. That's it.
There's also notes for some items that I've thought of uses for, but not really good anymore. I've always thought about using Manta Style for Phoenix, but things have happened. There was, when it was early, the Dying Light effect could actually be affected when an illusion was really low. Now it just doesn't, right? Wait. I thought they changed that. Do damage to him. Heroes taking burning... Wait, what? I thought they removed that. Oh, it does no damage. Okay, so it's still there, it just doesn't do its damage. Okay. So when the patch initially came out, illusions got full effect from the Dying Light's facets. So that would actually allow some of the illusions to do like an extra 30 damage in an area. The effect doesn't stack, but whatever. I realized that they were taking a bit of damage, that's because of Radiance, and I shouldn't have done that. But anyways, back to what I was actually talking about with Manta Style. The Triple Bird Brigade, go! This is the part where Nullifier had its slow. Oh yeah, it had a slow. 10% slow, what? It applies a 10% slow now? What? Oh my gosh. Anyways, there was a time when, whenever you nullified someone, every time it hit, it would slow them down a tremendous amount. That's no longer a thing. So the idea that I had a long time ago as like a meme strategy was using that Manta. They were going to get hit by the illusion, so they would get slowed, and then I would use Sunray to actually kill them. That would not work in an actual game because you would have to get a lot of stuff right, but it was a way to apply a really strong slow very infrequently. Or even, I didn't even have to rely on Manta Style, just applying Nullifier in general, having someone else besides Phoenix attacking. They get slowed a bit, use Sunray. It's a really strong slow, which is probably why they removed it, so it doesn't have that really strong slow anymore. It now has just a 10% measly nothing. So some of the text is just me being like, ah, damn, some of this old stuff doesn't work anymore, and that's kind of what that's about. Some of these things are kind of funny. I do have a little text for like all of the components. Helm of Iron Will is an item I really like on Phoenix. This kind of goes back to a long time ago when Helm was like really strong. It gave you like 6 regen and 4 armor. That was really good. Built into Veils, it was really nice. Then they changed it so that Veils instead was built from a crown and a Basilius. But then they changed it again to where it's back to its old self, where it's from Helm of Iron Will. And because that goes into Shiva's, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I can get Helm of Iron Will again. It gives me extra health and armor. That is exactly what Phoenix needs a lot of the time. It's such a good pickup. And then it goes into Veils, which makes his damage really high, which goes into Shiva's, which makes his damage really high and slows everything. It's just a good item. Wow, I can't believe they did this. But then also every hero was picking up Shiva's Guard because of the extra damage, and it did really good. And they also nerfed Helm of Iron Will, finally, at long last, which I don't know why they took so long, but it's still good. It's just not as good as it was. But yeah, if you want like my in-depth opinion on all of these items, I'm going to have like little text messages for every single one of them. Ahgs is something I want to talk about, though. So, Ahgs, what does that do? Provides an extra couple hits to Supernova, and it also allows an ally to get into Supernova. You can see it by the little icon on there. Benefits of this, if your buddy survives, they get their health and mana restored, as well as all their abilities off cooldown, which is really good for some heroes, like, let's say, Invoker, who has a bazillion spells, that whenever this combo actually goes off, he can get all of his spells off cooldown again, which is really good. Other idea is with Medusa, where she relies a lot on her mana, and if you, again, get the Supernova to work, you can ideally regenerate all of her mana again. In a very specific circumstance, you can get someone like Kunkka, who has these two extra abilities, Tidal Wave and Tidal Storm. Those are his Acceptor effects. These are not ultimate abilities. So, what that actually means is if Supernova goes off and the Kunkka survives, he can get access to another copy of all of that. So as an example, best case scenario, you press your buttons. Oh wow, so many buttons. Everyone gets stun locked by the Tidal Storm, and by the end of it, it comes back up. You get to use that all again. Ideally, that can be really strong, but that also means that enemies have to be close enough for that to work. So it's difficult to get it to actually be beneficial. Then, of course, there's the extra hits, where in total, you could potentially survive a lot more than you should. Which, the extra hits isn't bad, and the other stuff isn't bad either, and the save potential also isn't bad. In my opinion, it's just not enough. The extra hits that you get from Nova, which is like 3 at max level, while it does sound like a lot, and it is, a lot of the time doesn't matter, because a lot of heroes later in the game can attack 3 times in a second, so I guess it provides an extra seconds, maybe, but then you're also trying to compete with other heroes who can attack maybe 1 or 2 times, so will it work or will it not? It's hard to tell. And if you're up against teams that don't have good attack speed, you don't probably have to go for that. You can just, like if the enemy team is really slow, oh, you're slow already? Cool, I don't have to work as hard in order to throw out all of my damage. Oh, well I guess I can't do anything. I can think of a few instances where this is actually really, really good, where you're trying to actually save a core that's getting got on by like a bunch of people. Ideally, you would try to actually do that and they can be saved, but now you have Supernova really close to the enemy team, which if they were more prepared, which later on in the game people are probably going to be really difficult to kill. Actually, now that I think about it, if you can get this to work where Kunkka is getting got on and a bunch of people are trying to attack him, he's almost dead, but you go in, you Supernova, everyone's trying to get it but gets stunned. Activate that again, and you can potentially do that? So someone in the future, if you have a Kunkka on your team, have them get Ahgs and Shard, have the enemy team try to go on him. He uses a button, you go in, save the Kunkka, they're trying to get over to the Supernova, they can't because they're stunned. It's really annoying. Everything blows up. Oh look, you have access to another, it's a Torn Storm. You can do more with That is honestly a really strong potential, but I've never actually seen it done in a real game, which bugs me a lot. Even I haven't been able to get it to work very much because a lot needs to go right. I guess I'll also mention someone like Terrorblade. He focuses around his metamorphosis skill. That basically makes him bigger, makes his illusions bigger, and do more damage. And he tries to play around it. Has really long cooldown, so you could ideally use Supernova for that. But why are you trying to refresh his thing? Why don't you have it as a team fight ability? You could combo it with like this. Also, another problem that I have with Scepter is that it does take someone out of the fight, and if you're not careful, it'll take both of you out of the fight. I'm talking about it too much. Man, Supernova is very variable heavy. This is useless. Don't get. If you somehow need extra hits, also at this point there's no point in saving the egg. Saving aspect is interesting, but not worth the gold cost. Combo with Refresher, Blink, and Force for best result. However, if there's a free blessing, get it. It'll win you the game. Yes, I have lost games because I refuse to get blessing. That has happened way too many times. So, a rule that I've had is that I will always get a blessing if no one else will want it, or if someone specifically asks for me to take it. Other times, I just don't feel like getting it is worth the gold cost. And I also have to make sure... Like, I can't press Supernova as I normally do. I have to press Alt and then do the button, which doesn't sound like much, but now I have to press 2 buttons in a situation, and my fingers can only have so much availability. I just don't like Scepter on Phoenix. It's good, it has potential, but I feel it's way too niche. Something else to note that I think is funny, the actual Scepter effect hasn't changed all that much since its inception. Like, literally when Phoenix came out years ago, when he got his Scepter, the only thing that is stuck is the ability to save your allies. The extra attacks was actually added on in a later patch. But as time goes on, Phoenix's Supernova has had its hit count changed, added, and reduced so much. What I find is funny is everything is in 2s, right? So, normal Supernova, 6, 8, 10 hits to destroy. Okay. Then there's the +2 Supernova talent. Okay, that was actually a change in the recent patch to make that actually line up. So it's 8, 10, 12 if you get the talent, which 2 hits isn't a lot. But then you get Scepter, that gives you 7, 10, 13, and that actually is +1, 2, or 3, depending on what level it is. Now that would make sense if you think about it. But why is it +1, 2, and 3 and not just +2? What's up with that? Well, that's because that is literally the attacks to destroy count that it has since its inception. For whatever reason, the Scepter for Supernova has not had its hit count adjusted to match with the current Supernova hits. I don't know why they don't change it. Maybe they don't feel like changing it. This effect has not changed in like almost a decade. Probably 8 years more like, but seriously, it's probably been over a decade since this thing has changed. I really want the Scepter to be better, but I just feel like in its current state, it's just not. I know, there will be people in the comment section that are like, but it's really good, you can save people with it. That's true, but can I just do that normally? Why don't I just get that as a shard and have the Sunray effect as my Scepter? Because it seems like, since everything revolves around Sunray Supernova, why not just have that as like a Scepter thing if it's that strong? Well, it's strong because it is a shard effect. We want it to be a shard effect so we can have it more often. We don't want it to be bound by Scepter. It was actually bound to Scepter for a while, and it actually made the Scepter good because of that. But then it got moved over to his level 20 talent, which then got moved back over to his shard, or to his shard. Oh man, I have a lot to talk about, don't I? I need to stop talking, my voice is giving out. Okay, basically, Scepter is good, but is way too niche to use, so usually I don't get it. If a blessing is available from Roshan and no one else is taking it, then I'll take that too. But any other time, there's not much of a reason to purchase the Aghanim Scepter for that, because it only really works if your teammate is really low on health and you feel like saving them with a supernova, and the enemy team isn't able to destroy the supernova, which most of the time, if you're playing Phoenix and the enemy team knows that, they're probably going to pick stuff that's really good against Phoenix because they want to win. So it just ends up being supernova not doing, or the scepter for Nova isn't enough. And even the extra hits that I see a whole bunch of people go, it never feels like enough. Like, either you go in, hit everything, all of a sudden they can't actually do enough damage to the Nova to actually matter. Actually, was that a +5? That was +5, so that actually would have saved me there. But if there was one more hero, one more, then I actually would have died there. But of course, if you have your teammates, they have skills that stun people. When teammates have skills that stun people, all of a sudden, it makes survivability for Supernova significantly better. Because they literally just lose time to attack things. Also, I don't know why people don't go for the Icarus dive range. Look at this. Look how far away that is. This is really fun. This should be more useful. You can, like, zoom across the map really quickly. Of course, it's on a long cooldown, but that allows you to reposition into fights, like, easily. You can reposition literally to anywhere in a fight. You can get behind the enemy lines, use Supernova as you need to. It just feels like a better talent to go than +2 hits to Supernova. If you can't figure it out right now, I am ranting so much about the slight nuances that Phoenix has. I think I should probably end this soon because my voice is starting to give out and I really need to stop talking. So that was kind of a state of Phoenix, my current thoughts on him. I'll probably make more videos as time goes on, as like addendums to this, and then we'll hopefully see some changes. Will things that I've complained about with Phoenix actually be accounted for in later patches? Probably not. Devs don't listen to me. They do listen to me when I mention bugs, because they've actually fixed 2 game-breaking bugs related to Phoenix before. Oh, have I ever mentioned that? One of my first videos on this channel was literally a bug report relating to Faceless Void's time dilate and Phoenix's supernova, where there was a bug that caused Phoenix's abilities to have their cooldowns increased by time dilate. Like, it would get rid of the debuff of time dilation, but it would cause his abilities to have an extra 6 seconds. And I'm like, what? That's a bug. I'm going to report that. And then reported that. And that actually got fixed eventually, which I felt really proud of. You can actually see the video as like one of my first videos way down the line. And then newcomers to the channel might have also noticed a recent video I had that had Snapfire, Blade Mail. Let's see. Basically, the bug would cause Snapfire to attack the Supernova with Blade Mail. Not 5 hours afterwards, that got patched out. I felt really proud that I was able to even find that. Now, of course, that doesn't mean I'm like the finder of bugs or whatever. I'm just really good at noticing stuff specifically with Phoenix. If you can't tell, I play a lot of this hero. So, main takeaway, I'm hoping that people who watch this at least have an idea of what goes through my head whenever I play Phoenix, or if hopefully answers questions that they might have on how to actually play him in the lane later on in the game. I would also recommend getting my guide, or at least like having it available. Although I will say it's kind of a mess, so it probably won't help you a whole lot. I mean, even the build itself is a little... the main core build that I have is kind of outdated, and I need to work on that. But down near the bottom, I do have some options for support builds, and I need to update the Dying Light section specifically. If you want a good idea of what items to go, or if you're thinking on, is Mask of Madness a good thing? Oh, there, partner, this item's reserved for cores that have nothing to lose. Do you fit that description? I thought not, spellcaster. Return to your spellcasting ways. But sure, I can't use my spells. They're on cooldown. This is an idea I had for Phoenix right-click, where literally, this is kind of the build. It centers around, what does Phoenix do after he uses all of his spells? Not much. Oh, well, he doesn't have anything to lose then, so he can just use Mask of Madness and do some stuff. Armlet makes him attack a bit better, and AC was kind of for the extra attack speed and armor. But recent update... Oh man, I need to not talk as much. Okay, I need to wrap this up. Recent changes, Dying Light kind of makes this a lot better, because I think a problem with the build that I had was that Masked Madness was to attack a whole lot, do a bunch of damage, and heal off the damage that I took. Main downside with the whole build is that Sunray becomes kind of an afterthought. Dying Light at least kind of gives you a reason to lose that health, and it kind of helps with the farming that I think had some downsides with the build. Now, is this actually good? No, do not do this in an actual game. I actually tried it, and it felt very lackluster. And that's where going for something like Shiva's Guard is actually just significantly better, because it allows you to use Sunray into Supernova, and you can do a tremendous amount of damage. It's just better. Going for Sunray is just better. Building for that, having a team comp that allows Sunray to do more damage is just better. Items that allow it to function better is just better than going for Phoenix right click. I've been trying for a couple years to even get that to work. It doesn't. Other dumb idea I had, and this is probably something that will never be a thing. It's like some weird repositioningness. So basically, hey, you're behind the enemy. Why don't you force them into the enemy team? That's one idea I had. I don't know how effective that's going to work, because this also means that Phoenix is probably in the enemy team while he did like pick off someone and force them close. That's an idea I had. How effective that is, I don't know. I'd like to try that out more. That's like a very meaty build that probably only works as a skirmishing tool. Although, that is nothing compared to this other stupid build. Will this ever work? No idea. But, ideally... Wait, hold on. Will this work? I don't know. But ideally, you try to get a dive at the very apex, you try to dive them back, right? How does this work? Wait a second. Oh, well, I guess the build doesn't do much. Okay, I think this is because of some forced movement changes that they did, but this is an idea I had where you could dive in, and then on the dive back, as you're diving back, have harpoon hit, and then they literally just get dragged into the enemy team because it tries to pull them to where Phoenix is. But I think with how they changed forced movement, it ends up just canceling the dive. So it's not as effective as it was a moment ago. So I need to update that text, because that's no longer a thing. Okay, I think that's just going to be the end of the video. I could probably talk for like hours, but I don't think my throat can take much more of this. So, I think that's just going to be the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it at least some amount. I hope you learned Phoenix a little bit more than you did before. This is probably going to be like a 30 or 40 minute video. I don't know what it is, but it's like 2 hours to me. So hopefully you learned something, at least some amount. And you all have a good night.